Guess we call the meeting to order.
Yep, being 5 o'clock, pretty close to it. Call the meeting to order with a roll call.
Okay. Greg Myrie. Here. Rich Shield.
Here.
Wayne Feldmeyer, not yet. Ed Helm, not yet. Jim Weezer.
Here.
Larry Hafner.
Here.
Josh Grant.
Here. Guess we'll go right into the first,
Or I'll read the, yes.
first order of business.
First notice of public hearing. Please take notice that an application has been made by William Gartner, 12670 McCusick Road, North Stillwater, Minnesota, for a conditional use permit to place a cabin in an agricultural district, section 14 through 14.3, subdivision 1, subsection 5 in Winnebago Township on the following premises to wit. Part of western half of the southeast quarter, section 29, township 101, range 5, Houston County, Minnesota, PID 160314-003. Said applicant standing and making application is as fee owner of said described lands. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota, at 5 p.m. on Thursday, August 25th, 2022. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 304 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921, or emailed to martin.herrick@co.houston.mn.us, and must be received by Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Comments in regard to the petition received by this date will be part of the public record and will be made available for review by the Planning Commission prior to the meeting.
Applicant here. You want to make some comments, please?
Yes, should I just do it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then try to get by a microphone.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, the cabin application.
Your name, please.
Oh, my name is William Gardner.
Thank you.
The cabin application is filed after the fact. That's my fault, and I've met with the appropriate authorities and paid the fees. And the reason for the cabin, as stated in the application, is primarily recreation for me and also for my children and their families. I have 3 grandchildren, 3 granddaughters that come down here more often than I do and use the place, and they love it. It is located, I think you can see from the picture, it's located in an area that you can't even really see from the road, so it's unobtrusive. And I've done a lot of land management on that property. There's a lot of buckthorn there. So I worked with Valerie Green. We have a forest management plan that's been filed. And I've been working to eradicate the buckthorn, which is a never-ending task, as you probably all know. The other significant issue on that piece of land was erosion. As I found out, it drains over 900 acres. And when we get these massive rain events, which we get quite frequently down here, there were flash floods coming down through the middle of my property and creating massive erosion events. A hole so big we called it the Grand Canyon of Eitzen. So I hired Frank Marr. He put up the push-up dam, and we've effectively stopped the erosion. And so that protects the quarry road because it was being eroded away from some of the flash floods and also the sediment into Eitzen Creek in Winnebago. So I'm committed to improving the piece of property I have. I'm also committed to the community. I spend significant sums of money on the improvement of the land and also the construction of the cabin. I mean, I knew Bonnie on first name basis at Caledonia Lumber. She's now retired. Folks down there know me. All my work gets done on my machines here in Eitzen. And so I spend as much of the money as I can that I need to down here in the area. So I try to contribute not only in terms of land management, but also in terms of being although a transient, a good community citizen. And so that's the basis of my application. Just love it down here. I'd like to be able to stay there in the cabin. I don't use it for much more than a couple nights at a time. Campfire is the only thing that we have. Lights, we're not hooked up to any utilities, and we will not be hooked up to any utilities. I'll just use a battery or maybe put in the solar system at one time, but no intention to live there. It's simply a camping recreation cabin.
What year is the cabin built?
Yeah, I think 6 or 7 years ago,
Okay.
probably 6 years ago.
Just judging by this overhead, it looks like that ditch you're talking about is possibly to the north of the cabin.
It was to the north, correct, right through the middle of the lower meadow.
Okay. And that drainage doesn't affect the cabin whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Any other questions from the planning committee members?
What prompted you to come in and get a permit now?
Well, good question. I thought maybe I should get insurance on the cabin. So they said you need a fire number. So I called Doug. We had been talking about getting a couple of fire number for a couple of years. And then one thing led to another. I got a call from the planning commission. They said you need permits. I said, oh, well, I wasn't aware of that because when I had talked to people down here before, they said anything under 400 square feet, you don't need a permit. Well, obviously that's wrong, as I found out. And I guess I didn't pursue it after I heard a couple, you don't need anything for 400 square feet or less. I didn't pursue it. So it's my fault. And so when I found out I needed them, I took care of it.
And we did charge the triple fee as we are allowed to do. So
Thanks, appreciate that. Oh, if we can get anybody from the public.
I did not get any comments, any complaints from anybody when we did notifications.
Any more general discussion from the members?
Oh, I'm sorry. Basically under, and I have that in the staff notes, we are allowed for after the fact permits to charge triple the permit requirement. So instead,
like 21.
so instead of 700, it was $2,100, right?
And the one picture, it looks like there's other buildings up there.
There's a wood shed and there's a small storage shed, picnic table.
Unless anybody has any more questions, we should review the finding of facts.
I'd like to make a motion to take out finding 8, 9, 12, 13, 14.
I'll second that.
No, you second.
I second.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I'll read the findings.
Yep.
Section 1105 of the Houston County zoning ordinance requires the following. Subdivision 1 findings. The planning commission shall not recommend a conditional use permit unless they find the following. Number 1, that the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan. Staff analysis. The comprehensive plan references limiting development in agricultural areas. This proposal has limited impact on tillable acreage and the soils are limited in that, I should have wrote limited, that they're not good for rural crop production. So
Any questions? All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. All in favor or against, same thing. Motion carries.
number 2, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis. The applicant indicates that the cabin is intended for recreational use, which is a legitimate need.
No questions on that one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 3, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Staff analysis. Any effects on water quality resulting from the placement of the cabin are anticipated to be negligible. There is no plumbing or wastewater system with the cabin, and a composting toilet is used. The cabin is not located in highly erodible soils, and vegetation is established.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 4, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis, the cabin footprint is minimal and is not anticipated to have an effect on the quantity of water runoff. The impermeable surfaces producing runoff are limited and the site is vegetated.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 5, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Staff analysis, the soil survey indicates that soils can accommodate buildings but should conform to the natural slope of the land. The placement of the skid-mounted building was at the site's existing grade. The soils are best suited for woodlands.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 6, that the potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Staff analysis, there are no anticipated pollution hazards as the cabin is very limited with no utilities.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number
Motion
7,
carries.
okay, sorry. Number 7, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis, no utilities are proposed. Access is from Quarry Road. The owners have added a water retention structure on another part of the parcel to control site drainage.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Sorry, what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any opposed on that? Motion carries.
Number 8 is not applicable. Let's see. Number 9 is not applicable. Number 10, that conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Staff analysis, the parcel is located off Quarry Road. There are 2 farmsteads located greater than 1,000 feet away. The addition of a cabin has minimal impact on Quarry Road and is not anticipated to negatively affect the use of the neighboring properties.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property or predominant uses in the area. Staff analysis, the predominant land use is agriculture and woodland, the continuation of which will not be impacted by a cabin. The zoning office does not know of any new developments proposed in this area, and a cabin should not impact neighboring landowners' ability to utilize their property for existing uses.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 12, 13, and 14 are not applicable. Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis, public health, safety, morals, and general welfare are not anticipated to be impacted.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the findings.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the permit.
I guess, want me to read the recommendation for the
Yes,
conditions too?
please.
Recommendation for the conditions are the planning commission must consider the criteria above. Should the permit be granted, staff recommend requiring the following conditions. Number 1, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Number 2, the county may enter the premises at reasonable times and in a reasonable manner to ensure the permit holder is in compliance with the conditions and all other applicable statutes, rules, and ordinances.
Whatever you do by then, I'll make a motion to approve this. Permit with these 2 findings, recommendations.
I second that.
All in favor of the motion?
Back to the triple. Just for background on that. We always do that when it's, when like a situation like this.
We try to. I won't kid you that they don't, I mean, where they get nuancy is less, if they're less than $1,000 activity, they can certainly be waived. There are situations where you could have it for two things instead of just one. So you may just apply it to one, and in some instances, you might apply it to the lower one of the two things that you could apply it to. In some instances, you could apply it to double. So is there some interpretation? Potentially. But is it mandatory? I think it says may.
Just out of curiosity, has Mr. Gardner had been working with us really well on getting it taken care of, applying for the permit, getting all that?
Well, yeah, I mean, he came in and that day and he was extremely cooperative and we said after the fact and our first reaction was, I said, well, that's triple. And he didn't object. I guess that's.
I swallowed hard.
That's the discourse today. I mean, there wasn't, wow.
Yeah. I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if it's even possible, but you know, he's had it for 7 years at his place. Hasn't caused a problem, kept keeping up the property, everything. Came forward, has worked well with everybody. Could we add the recommendation that he refunded the triple fee, just have to pay the normal fee? Can the county board do that?
My opinion is, I don't wanna cost extra money for him just because of mistake. That's a common mistake that people say. I didn't need a cabin. That's what everybody told me, and then you have them. And if you don't do the triple, even if it's not your fault or anything, what do you do for the next guy who
It's,
purposely does it, thinking, I don't care if I have to. pay
yeah, I
triple."
mean, it's,
It's in the ordinance that you got triple the fine.
you know, I can go back and, well, it's in your notes. I mean, we could certainly dig it out if you want to look exactly what the verbiage says. I mean, it's, the intent of it is to keep people from not doing that. I mean,
Right, right,
obviously.
yeah.
And I mean, does it happen? It does happen. And I mean, like you can point back to the Jazuski one with half the building and those kind of scenarios. I mean, we have, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these a year, 3 easily that occur. And they sure would go easier if they came in, because we will certainly work with people. And we're not to say that, you know, we're not pointing fingers here, but you know, I would recommend keeping it, but on the other hand, I certainly recognize that there's merit to issuing this permit, you know, as far as that goes. But I mean, in terms of, is there some way to kind of potentially refund back? I've never done it, but I don't know.
Well, this line states, let's see here. Contractor, owner, person, firm, or corporation that begins an activity or project requiring a zoning permit without first clearing said zoning permit shall be subject to triple the normal fees.
Okay, shall,
Says shall.
there
What's
you
the
go.
next line? Projects less than 1,000.
The 1,000,
Permit or is that the actual?
that's the having to charge the triple fee. That's, I believe they're saying less than that amount, you can waive it.
For less than that amount, the application less than that amount or the
Oh, no, the value of the project.
value of the project?
Yeah, that's my, yeah.
And gentlemen, I accept the responsibility. I mean, I made the mistake and
Well, thanks for coming forward.
I already
Absolutely.
paid it, so
Yeah,
it's
you know, you've been,
money under
you've
the dam.
you've been great to work with. I called them up. I said, can I go out and look at the site? And I did, and I got some pictures and everything went great. And so it's
Well,
like,
he came forward. There's a lot of them out there that don't come forward.
Yeah, that's just where I was.
I
I
completely
agree with
agree.
you, Josh. He shouldn't be hammered so hard.
Yeah,
Right.
it's unfortunate.
It's in our ordinance and I mean, there's not much we can do about it. I agree with you. He should probably get half the fine. He came forward, you know, where there's 100 of them out there that are hiding in the bushes.
Probably.
All right, I'm good.
Any more comments? Hearing none, so what do we have, a motion and a second? Is that where
Yeah.
we're at?
So do a roll call vote on
Let's do roll call.
that. Okay,
Sure.
to approve. Greg Myrie,
Yes.
Rich Shield,
Yes,
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Jim Weezer,
Yes,
Larry Hafner,
Yes.
Josh Grant.
Yes.
Motion passes. We will send this on to the supervisor.
To the commissioners, right?
We do a recommendation, and then final decision.
Up be on the seventh or the sixth.
I think it's at least the 6th.
Yeah, I think it's just.
Coming in.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. And you keep right on time too.
It always don't work that way.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It looks like a nice cabin.
Thank you. It's a good deer stand too.
Is that right?
Come stop by sometime, you see the antlers.
Is there anything in the cooler?
Anything in the cooler? That can be arranged.
All right. Our next group.
Now, the next person we have, she's on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
I hope I sent her.
Yep, she's
the
on.
thing. Okay, good.
Okay, she's just gotta, all right, who were we talking about? Rachel?
Rochelle.
Rochelle, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go over your request here.
And there are, when we get into it, there'll be a couple of nuances that there were discrepancies, and I'll talk about it as we get into it, but one of the things that we ran into is we went with what was recorded for the description, but
Mhm.
it's changed. And so the owners are different. So I'll go into the mechanics of what transpired there.
All right,
There's no objections. It's just that it's in
you'd
process.
like to have it part of the record.
Yeah, well, and as a result, we've had to adjust.
Okay.
So, but I'll read the notice of public meeting. Please take notice that an application has been made by Jordan and Rochelle Meyer, 18769 Eagle Heights Road, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921. To operate an agricultural business in an agricultural district, section 14 to 14.3 conditional uses, subdivision 1, subsection 1, in Winnebago Township on the following premises to wit: in the southwest quarter, the southeast quarter, and the southeast quarter, the southwest quarter, section 18, township 102, range 4, Houston County, Minnesota, parcel 1600340005. Said applicant standing and making application is as fee owner of said described lands. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota, at 5:20 PM on Thursday, August 25th, 2022. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 304 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921. Emailed to martin.herrick@co.houston.mn.us and must be received by Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Comments in regard to the petition received by this date will be part of the public record and will be made available for reviewing by the Planning Commission prior to the meeting. Houston County Planning Commission by Martin Herrick, zoning administration.
Right.
I'll make a motion to take findings 5 and 8 out.
Should we have her talk about the,
Yeah,
if you want to get some,
could you, what's the name, Rachel?
Rochelle?
Rochelle?
Rochelle, yep.
Let us know what you're doing, what are you doing, how are you doing it?
Yeah, so there's an existing garage on the property that it's already has electrical in it, so we're just putting our freezers out there, and then a fridge as well, so customers can come on farm to pick up their meat and milk. So we're also going to be selling raw milk. All of our meat products are USDA certified, processing at Dover Processing. And then our milk, we already talked to our milk inspector, and we just have to follow the rules and regulations in Minnesota. People have to come on farm to pick up their milk. And she's okay with that as long as, we're following all rules and regulations there. We do not have to do anything as far as like building up to code in order to sell our meat and milk. Because we already have a mobile unit, we have a trailer that's already certified. The farm store, we don't have to do anything. I did talk to the Minnesota Department of Ag to make sure we didn't have to follow any rules and regulations as far as having the building up to code. So we are in compliance there. So we just plan to, be open a few nights a week for people to come up and pick on farm. And then we do also host events for other farmers as learning opportunities to come on farm and, do pasture walks and kind of see how we do our rotational grazing. So we do, under the permit, I asked for, to have pasture walks for the local community. And then our customers, we usually do a couple pasture walks a year for them to come see how we're raising their food and, why it's so important to us so they can learn a little bit more about us. So that's why we applied for the permit.
All right. Any questions by the planning commission?
So I'll go over and for Rochelle too. Initially, we went with the recorded description and it had other people listed on there as the owners.
Okay.
And so it was a case of when we published that, Gordon Meyer came in and said, I'm no longer one of the owners. And we were like, well, at the time we went to the recorder and said, so what do you show? And it's a case of it's in transition. So what the recorder has still shows these other parties as being members or being owners of this parcel. And we're like, so our conditions are going to try to reflect that they're in process of getting it recorded. Part of, and I think Rochelle can probably explain it, it's got a tricky survey. There's things that are being like, she's nodding, kind of moved back and forth and shifted around, and it's got a lot of things going on. And I think is that a fair statement that some of the description?
Yep. So when we, so Jordan's uncle sold the property to us. So basically they're working on, fixing all the zoning lines so they're all correct. So it's kind of moving parcels around. And then trying to get Gordon's name off that parcel since we did buy it from him. So it's basically just going through that process. We did have it surveyed and stuff before we bought it. So it's just getting all them legal descriptions written up and recorded. So.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and approve the permit and have a condition as when that is finalized.
Yes,
then we go
that's the
forward.
approach we're taking, right? With the understanding that it's done in a fairly timely manner. Obviously, this won't drag out. But, right. Let's see, what else did we have? I guess the only other thing that I would have would be just to go through, and no comments from the public were received. So I guess the next thing would be the findings.
You got any more questions from the planning commission members?
So Rochelle, you don't plan on having a bathroom or anything in there?
No, we don't need a bathroom. If we were to be selling like our sausages and bacon out of our farm store, we would actually need a bathroom. So we decided we weren't going to do that at this time. We can sell them off of our mobile unit at our farmers markets and stuff, and we're okay with that. So no, we're not doing any bathroom, no running water, none of that.
What happens if somebody comes and they need to use the restroom?
I guess, we do have a restroom up in our parlor that we have to have in order to sell grade A milk. We have a restroom up there. I guess all of our customers, in advance, I send out, weekly emails so they kind of know what to expect upon pickup and stuff like that. And, if it, is an issue, I can always add something to our website. Most people check our website, for hours and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, but it in the case of an emergency, you do have something available.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that's good.
So this is for you, Martin. If they were to decide to change their products they're selling that would need a restroom, what would they need to change the permit? Or
I
how would that
believe,
work?
I believe you would have the evaluation of the septic system.
Yes.
That would be
Yep.
That would, that
Yeah,
would be.
we
the
would have to
separate
evaluate
thing.
our septic
Yeah,
system.
and
So that's
so
why
when
we
you're looking at
decided,
the,
yeah, we decided not to go that route just because, we didn't want to stick a bunch of money into that and we're just fine, selling at farmers markets.
the other thing that I'm guessing that goes along with that is that when you get in that and is that all of a sudden you need a lot of stainless steel.
Yeah,
I mean, and a certain grade stainless steel too, and then there's a lot of food requirements that go along with that type of activity.
That's
But
correct.
the main one is that if in any way you're becoming a different type of retail, then your loading activity for your septic changes. And that's kind of like back to square one for the evaluation.
all right.
How many customers do you expect, starting now? Roughly on a weekly basis or daily
I would
basis?
say right away, we'll probably be about 5 to 10 a week.
Okay,
I would guess certain amount of this is seasonal, not,
Yes, that is correct. Yep.
Well, the raw milk is all year round, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the raw milk. Yeah, our cows are 100% grass fed. So in the winter months, they'll really slow down on milk production. And we actually considered having that milk seasonal as well. So our raw milk sales will really drop off in the winter months. That's kind of the same with the meat too. We see a really, influx in summer months, and then winter months, people usually kind of stock up and then,
hunker down.
yep.
All right. Where are we at here? We're about ready for findings, huh?
Okay,
Make a motion that we take number 5 and
13.
5 and 13, huh?
are you in for the Meyer, here for the Meyer? Okay, all right, so, okay, all right, thanks. We're just checking. Okay. Yeah, we can start the findings. Yeah, I guess, all right. Planning Commission shall not recommend a conditional use permit unless.
You get a motion on the
Right.
5 and 13.
Oh, I'm sorry.
we got a motion. Do we got a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion to bypass
5 and 13.
5 and 13.
Right.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, the findings. The Planning Commission shall not recommend a conditional use permit unless they find the following. Number one, that the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan. Main purpose of the land use plan is to promote practices that allow expansion and maintenance of commercial agriculture.
Anybody have any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number two, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis. The applicants are requesting a conditional use permit to change the use of a garage into a farm outlet store. This change to direct sales initiated the need for a conditional use permit.
Any comments on that?
Well, I gotta ask this, since we just did another ag related one, we did Ed's place and then the trucking one. So this could be, if they decide to quit doing the farm products, could they start doing anything else ag related?
It's the section that they cited is pretty specific to that activity. I mean, it wouldn't be to allow a farm shop or something like that. It's, go back to where it's cited. It's under section 14.3 subdivision 1.1. And it's like an other, I can dig out the code and show you, but it's pretty tightly defined for the sale of those kind of activities. But, it kind of is, but realize the one that we just did for Ruth Helke was under 16, not under 14. That was under the business highway, even though it
Right.
started out under 14.3. That's not where it ended up. So it ended up in a different category, but initially it did start out in something pretty similar to this. Yes.
Okay.
So.
Any more comments? Hearing none, where we at?
Number 2.
Number 2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 3, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Staff analysis. The applicant states they will have no additional septage from the proposed activity.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 4, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis. This is an existing building and the proposed change of use will not have a greater impact than the current use.
Any information on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 5, not applicable. Number 6, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Staff analysis, by virtue of food grade facilities, the potential pollution hazards are minimized, including routine inspections for the respective products.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 7, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis, the existing farmstead has all utilities and existing road access. Should any new utility need arise, the cost will be the responsibility of the landowner.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 8, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking and loading space to serve the proposed use. Staff analysis, they have designated areas for the parking at this time. The applicant owns adequate contiguous acres for off-street parking and loading.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 9, that facilities are provided to eliminate any traffic congestion or traffic hazard which may result from the proposed use. Staff analysis, farm outlet guests will be managed.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Staff analysis. Farm is set back off the road and not directly visible to neighbors. It will remain a dairy operation as it has been for many years, but include direct-to-consumer sales. The farm outlet itself will have no nuisance factors and its view shed is blocked by other structures.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for predominant uses in the area. Staff analysis, much of the surrounding acreage is cropland, and an additional component at this farm will not impede future surrounding development.
Any comment on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 12, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. Staff analysis. This proposal will not produce offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, or vibrations, and there will be no lighted signs.
Does anybody have any question on that? I do. Will there be signs on that? Are you gonna have any signage?
We do have a sign like just at the end of our driveway. I wasn't sure, how that works. If you wanted to put one like on the highway or something, I wasn't sure the process for that. So,
There will be a requirement for that
okay.
There's-
on how you go about it.
You thinking of it being lighted or anything like that? A sign?
We really haven't talked about it. We weren't sure if there was requirements for that or,
Yeah, well, when you get there, there is requirements for that.
There is a requirement for signs and offset distances and things like that. We can certainly go
Mhm.
over that with you.
All right,
See, no,
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say motion or what is this? Opposed, sorry. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
number 13, not applicable. Number 14, that the intensity of any proposed commercial or industrial development is not greater than the intensity of the surrounding uses or not greater than the intensity characteristic of the applicable zoning district. Staff analysis, the agricultural community is evolving and many smaller producers are beginning to provide a unique direct sales service to increase viability. This practice ultimately does not change the commercial agriculture that already exists at this and neighboring sites.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis, the applicant is required to follow all county, state, and federal guidelines for the operation of their business, which should result in protection for the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Yeah.
Okay, the planning commission must consider the criteria above. Oh, sorry, yes, we should go. Well, I'll do a roll call on the.
I second.
Roll call or just, okay, we'll go with where we're at on that, that's fine.
We're gonna just do the roll call.
We can do that. Greg Myrie. Rich Shield,
Yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Larry Hafner,
Yes.
Jason Gant, I forgot my. Jim Weezer.
Yes.
I think we got him. Okay. Oh, yes, Jason, or Josh, sorry. Yep. I think I got everybody there. Need the recommendations?
Oh, so we're gonna have a roll.
Oh, well, or I did the roll, or I'll go through it
Oh,
again.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay, yes.
I'll do it
Read the
again.
recommendation.
Just read the recommendation.
Okay, all right. Planning Commission must consider the criteria above. Should the permit be granted, staff recommend the following conditions. Number one, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Number two, the county may enter onto the premises at reasonable times and in a reasonable manner to ensure the permit holder is in compliance with the conditions and all other applicable statutes, rules, and ordinances. Number three, upon completion of the updated description of the parcel being recorded with Houston County, a copy shall be submitted to the zoning department to reflect the current conditions with information being added to the permit to reflect correct ownership of the parcel.
All right.
I'll recommend approval of the permit with the 3 conditions.
I'll second.
Do a roll call.
Greg Myrie,
Yes.
Rich Shield,
Yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Jim Weezer,
Yes.
Larry Hafner,
Yes.
Josh Grant.
Yes.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Yeah, thank you.
Rather go in front of the board in a couple of weeks, Rochelle, and then we can work with Martin from there on.
We can
What's
work on
that?
this.
Sorry. Oh, the signage, yes.
Yeah. And it should be on the September 6th for the board.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, excuse me, next order of business. Fish and Wildlife Service.
I'll read the public notice. Notice of public hearing. Please take notice that an application has been made by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, North 27 County Road Z, across Wisconsin, 54650 for a conditional use permit to repair a levee in a floodplain district, section 21 through 21.5, subdivision 3, subsection 6, in Hoka Township on the following premises to wit: part of the northern half of the northeast quarter and part of the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter, lying north of the Root River, section 32, township 104, range 4, Houston County, Minnesota, parcel 0502550004. Said applicant standing and making application is as fee owner of said described lands. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota, at 5:40 PM on Thursday, August 25th, 2022. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 304 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921, or emailed to martin.herrick@co.houston.mn.us, and must be received by Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Comments in regard to the petition received by this date will be part of the public record and will be made available for review by the Planning Commission prior to the meeting. Houston County Planning Commission by Martin Herrick, Zoning Administration.
Who is going to speak for the Fish and Wildlife Service?
Please sign in. We got to sign in right there. Names.
Print your name.
Yep, name's fine. And then if you can speak into the mic, it's probably easier to sit down.
You can just sit in front of it.
You can just sit in front of it. It should pick you up.
Give us your name and the overview of what you're planning on doing.
Okay, my name is Tim Miller. I'm the La Crosse District Manager for the Upper Mississippi River National Wildlife and Fish Refuge. And just a quick overview of what our plans are. We acquired the property in 2020. That property, when we purchased it, had a breach on the levee that was with the previous landowner prior to our purchase. After we acquired the property, we did some planning, did some scoping, asked for comments. We received comments on what we should do. We also received some requests to repair the levee from our neighbors due to some flooding that was going on the property that we now owned, and then it was going on to the neighboring property. So we had a stakeholder meeting and we developed 7 alternatives based on the comments that we received. And this past March, we had a hydrology team come out, evaluate our alternatives. I won't go into detail in those alternatives, but they included everything from leaving the breach open to establishing new channels through there on the property, establishing off-channel levees. So essentially allowing the floodplain to be intact, but still protecting downstream resources and neighbors' resources. And essentially that hydrology study that we had done showed that, which is different from other breaches that have occurred downstream, that this one was cutting and filling. I believe in your packet, there's some photos that were generated from that. And the survey work, essentially, it's at that location, it's cutting a new channel. So the Root River was, I think everyone understands, the Root River was changed about 100 years ago. And it's now called Judicial Ditch Number 1 in its current location. However, this is a higher place on the valley. So that water wants to go to the old channel. And our hydrologist found that it's cutting and filling. So as we get floodwaters in there or high waters, that material is being cut and it's essentially cutting a new channel. And for that reason, we won't be able to restore all the hydrology on that 100-acre tract and, and be and be good neighbors as well. So one of the alternatives that we developed, we had another public meeting and talked to the folks and explained what we found through the research and through doing a bunch of survey work of the existing levee and the surrounding lands, that the best approach for us would be to allow a special use permit for the neighbors to hire a contractor to come in and repair the levee. With that, using the material on site that's been deposited there over the years. In doing that, we're gonna restore a couple wetlands on the site as well. That material will be used to build the levee up to its historic condition. And essentially that was the part of the hydrology work that they did was surveying the levee, which is, if you know that levee, I've got some photos of that and some LiDAR work from that. It doesn't have a consistent elevation anywhere on it. But what they did is they tried to take pre-breach LiDAR data and establish what that levee elevation was prior to it being breached. So we used that information to set the height on the levee for the contractor and essentially the dimensions of it, with it offset from the bank about 25 feet.
Any comments from the planning commission?
You stated the neighbors will be paying for this then?
The neighbors will be paying for it.
Okay. The adjoining property to the west, they also have a breach.
Joining property to the
That's
west.
state of Minnesota DNR.
Yes, they had a breach at one point.
Has that been filled in?
It has been fixed, yeah.
Well, according to LiDAR, it's still 2 feet below what you're planning, aren't you?
I'm not sure. I'd have to
Okay.
look at the LiDAR.
But just, just if you repair this one, is it gonna blow out there the next time? If
I
it's
have,
not
I have
repaired?
no way of knowing. One of the things that I would provide to you all is through our data. We set up a gauge closer to that tract in order to better know what we have in the Houston gauge and what we have on that lower end of the valley. And what we're finding from that is that there is a greater than 20% chance of any year of that entire levee being overtopped. That's just the condition of the river. So it's fairly inevitable that it will flood down there in any given year. That piece that you were talking about, that's out of our jurisdiction.
Right,
It's on
okay.
Minnesota DNR property.
Yep. My relatives own this property for many, many years, so I'm well aware of what's going on there. And they always try to grow crops, and they said they get one crop in 3 years, so I'm well aware of what goes on down there.
Any other questions or comments from the planning commission?
You said you only wanted to go back 25 feet from the riverbank and put a levee up?
We have that's the parameters that we have to stay within for permitting.
There's DNR
It would
stipulations.
make a lot
on-
more sense to go back at least 100 feet, put the levee up higher, and then just let the water, because once you get it out of the river, it slows way down. And you wouldn't be cutting the levee again.
Yeah, we're within the parameters from the state regulations,
It's,
so.
it's,
Well-
was 25 and 50. That was.
State regulations, what they did by my farm were totally wrong on everything. You know, and basically, it doesn't make any sense. If you can't do the job right, you shouldn't even start it. You know, that dike should be set back at least 100 feet. It should be 2-3 feet higher than what they always proposed it before. Because once the water gets out and gets away from that river, it's not gonna cut it anymore.
I mean, we're within.
It's hard to argue that because
Yeah,
that's the
no.
truth.
Our,
So how come these people up in the Twin Cities aren't smart enough to figure that out?
yeah, our hydrologist was recommending it further from the original bank than 25, but we're within the parameters that we have to follow within the state.
Can you get a variance on that?
I wouldn't know how to answer
I
that
mean,
question.
my understanding was they were originally talking 50 and then it went back to 25 per Nicole Lehman from the DNR.
Within the Fish and Wildlife Service, it would not make a difference. We had I will share, we had a meeting with all of the regulators or the folks that we would need to have permits with, and I mean, we met with the Corps and they were okay with our plans as well. So I couldn't answer that question. It'd have to go to Minnesota.
I think one of the things that might be some confusion here is that this is considered a repair and it's matching back to what was there before. So it isn't necessarily like a redesign in that context. It's like for
Like for like, yeah.
is the term they use, putting back what was there before. And that's the basis for where the DNR was using for their approval part of it.
How long has it been since this was originally put in place?
So it was breached in 2019. I believe it was breached in 2018 as well. But the levee in some shape or fashion has been there about 100 years.
What you're saying doesn't make any sense though. Because to tell you the truth, I lived on the river all my life. And when it floods, especially if there's ice out there, if you got that levee within 50 or 60 feet of the river, it's gonna cut it out every time. I've watched my land, I lost 50, 60 feet sometimes just because of the ice. If you set the thing back where it's not gonna have the water running, you're gonna save it, and then you can fix it once and you're done with it. And if they don't know how to fix it, why the heck are you here?
Yeah, that's completely out of my control. Within the realms of the Fish and Wildlife Service, we're going through the permitting process like we're required to. I have zero control over that. If the state of Minnesota wants to put that requirement on it, I'm not sure what I would do with that. I mean, does
Yeah,
that
but
make
this is
sense?
just common sense.
I
You know?
agree, but that is what it is.
There
It's a
was
like for like.
there's a discussion on it. I mean, that.
Yeah, we have.
It was
Yeah, but
25
everybody
versus
that's
50. It
discussing
was-
it, it's up in the Twin Cities that don't know their head from their ass. You know? They don't live with it. We live with it down here. We know how to fix things.
Yeah, I understand. That's completely out of my control. So,
And once, if you want to build it, why don't you build it once and build it right?
I don't disagree with that. So,
Not fixing it is not an option.
what's that?
Not fixing it is not an option.
It is an option.
It is an option.
It is an option.
Well, if you talk about scouring, I mean, it's gonna develop a new channel, won't it?
It will, we bought it as is. It was like that. Like I mentioned, there's other breaches downstream and upstream. Our surveyors found quite a few breaches in there. And many times if there's good vegetation there, it will plug itself off and rebuild the levee. We've got examples. I got like 3 other examples on Fish and Wildlife Service property where it's done that. But this one is doing something a little different. It's cutting and filling. And so what's in that path is county infrastructure. There's roads, there's other people's property. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen in the future, but there's a way that if we can establish good vegetation, good floodplain vegetation on that track, that if it does occur in the future, it'll not be cutting as severely. So that's our hope.
But it only makes sense that if you put it back 50 to 100 feet, you're not going to have the water cut it. Right?
I'm not an engineer, but I've listened to other folks that have said the same thing. So we're operating within the parameters that we're provided. So that
If the farmer's got to pay for it, why don't you let them build it the way they want to build it?
it's a permit that if we put in for that over that, we cannot get a permit.
Yeah, I mean, it's in
So-
it's in the context of like for like is how this is being permitted.
Right.
As
and-
in a restoration of what was there before.
So
So
the-
it's matching the upstream and the downstream.
Yeah, and so if the Fish and Wildlife Service were to do anything above and beyond that, we have to have all the permits in place for us to issue a special use permit from the refuge side of things. My understanding of this is if it's outside of those parameters that are given to us by the state, then we would have to go into a modeling scenario, like you mentioned, having it higher. And I got an estimate from our hydrologist, those hydrology studies that are required for that, anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. So I don't think that's necessary for this, especially in a like for like scenario. But, and I mean, that burden, that the service couldn't pay for it at all. I know that. But that's where we're sitting with that, to answer your question.
I think one of the things that I'm getting at is that this is a detailed area. This is the mod. There's a lot of study that's gone into this area in terms of FEMA and that type of thing. And so the oversight that goes along in this area is quite a bit more intense than some locations. And so any activity that occurs in this area is under tighter control. And so like when you get into the issues of modeling, using, the engineering documentation and all these kind of things, you're in this detailed part of the river, is what they would call it. And that's what's occurred.
If another agency sets the parameters, how come Fish and Wildlife is applying for the permit?
I'm not understanding.
If another agency says these are the parameters you have to meet, how come they're not actually applying for the permit? Why is Fish and Wildlife applying?
Because they
for
own
it?
the property.
They're the only.
Well, and we, in our public meeting, again, I entered the permit for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as assistance to the neighbors, because I don't know if you've ever tried to fill out one of these permits. It would, I think maybe some of them are here in the room, but there's a lot to enter in that they wouldn't know. So I did that for this process. So, and to better answer the questions that came up.
If I understood what you said before, that this has been repaired several times already?
I think it was repaired one time before we bought the property. I'm not sure how far it was in completion before it got blown up again. I can't answer that question.
Well, I'm with Wayne. I mean, if it's been repaired and
And it didn't fix it.
yeah, and it failed, and now we're saying we gotta be exactly like the last time. It failed.
It's never broke out there.
Let- The last time it was not within the permit parameters, I would say.
So I want to make sure I fully understand too. So it's on, you guys own the land, but you're not paying for it.
Correct.
How does that piece work?
How does what?
How does that piece work? So did the neighbors request to do this? Or did you
Yep,
guys-
the neighbors had requested.
Gotcha. And then
Permission to
they're
do it.
willing to pay for it because it benefit their land downstream.
Correct.
I'd like to hear from some neighbors so we get a little
Yeah.
better understanding.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
But, we may have
Yeah,
more
you
questions.
can ask
for
me more
but
questions.
yes,
Sure.
if people would like to come forward, you can certainly add your
All
comments.
right, do we have any members from the public that would
I actually ask one more quick question.
Sure.
So you didn't like bring this permit forward proactively. People approached you to do this.
Correct. I mean, it was, like we said, we bought the property as is. It had the breach on it. It takes a while for us to close on property. Actually, after we close to get title, the full title approval on it. But yeah, as soon as the property changed hands, we were approached by the neighbors.
Gotcha.
how long have you had it?
We've had it since, I believe it was 2020. So it was late fall 2020.
So what, this thing is breached and it's flooding the neighboring properties?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Pretty simplified version of it. Anybody else from the members interested in speaking?
If you can write your,
Right here.
absolutely, if you can
Okay.
write your name down too.
I'm Jeff Langen and part owner of neighboring farm. If you know where our farm is, it's it's right along Highway 16 between La Crescent and Hoka. There's two silos there, and then I have right now there's 58 cow calf pairs or cows in that pasture. Is like 100, between 100, 120 acres in that pasture area. And the line fence between the river and ours is maybe about a quarter of a mile between that. So then when the river does come up, then it comes across and then it floods. And then sometimes I do the best I can to watch river levels in Houston, but sometimes it comes up fast and then I have to get cattle out, which is not always easy, but so it's a big risk to my business having that dike not in there. The dike that's been in there and been maintained by, along the line, all the way up is where the dike is along the river. It's usually maintained as good as it can be by the landowner. And then it's always been where there has been breaches in the dike that the neighbors have contributed in and got it built back up again.
So Jeff, you're in favor of the permit.
I'm in favor of the permit, yes.
Were you one of the people that approached to have it fixed? or-
Yes. My father and mother and myself, yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else want to talk?
Are they big? When you say you have to pay to get it fixed, or the neighbors all contribute? Are we talking lots of money here, or I mean,
Jim
Dollar
Chapel
amount?
might have a better idea of that than I do. But yeah, we're gonna divide the costs up.
Yeah, there's like 6 of us that are farmers getting together and firing it done.
You want to come up to the microphone?
We had it looked at once and we were bid 35 to 45,000 to fix it. And it needs to be fixed because the water goes on all of our land when it goes out. I lost 1/4 of my crop this year already down there.
Can you give us the name, please?
Yeah, Jim Chapel.
Thanks.
And this was never broke before, and it's happened to me before. It's an ice jam down there. The river froze, the ice started floating over the top and it wore the riverbank down. It happened to me 20 years ago down there. Wore it down. Water was pouring over on Miller's Corner over there. They were calling me, our cattle are getting flooded, you need to get that fixed. So we got scrapers in there, bulldozers, and fixed it. This is just another area that needs to be fixed because it's causing hardship for everybody below us, or everybody below them, And I don't think it'll break out again because it's a straight stretch. The corners, I've fixed many places in the river, and the corners is what hard to fix. But you get a straight stretch and get it seated down and back to where it was, it'll hold just as good as any place. We'd appreciate permission that we're paying for it to go in there and fix it the way it was. So we can continue farming, trying to make money.
See, the land that's there, if you set it back at least 100 feet, I don't think it would ever break again.
You mean let the water move way over?
Yeah, well, as the water gets out of the river, it slows way down. Does that at my place too.
Yeah, this is a straight stretch though,
Yeah.
and if
And
the
it's all,
state,
it's all with the railroad bridge not down below it. That's what's giving you all the trouble.
yeah, this has
'Cause it
to
only
be
lets
big.
that so much through at a time.
Yeah, but I mean, if we can just fix it the way it was, it held 100 years like that before, I think it'll hold another 100 years until ice jam comes. And
Yeah,
I've only had one ice jam in 30 years down there on mine.
Yeah.
And then I had neighbors, that's just a polite thing to do when something breaks and you're pouring water on somebody's crops in their fields, you fix it.
Yeah.
And Nibbling sold it because it was broke.
yeah.
And that's why he was trying to get money from every farmer to fix it and not himself. So, it needs to be fixed. It's causing a lot of problems. This last little flood a month ago in Houston didn't even go over the bank. Down there, I had, 100 acres of beans underwater.
Yeah.
And they're all
See
mud
that.
now, so. That's driving everybody out of business if we don't get this fixed.
There's no money available, like
Well, we asked, but I mean, if there isn't, then we have to pull the money out of our own pockets because it's ruining our land.
But I'm saying, I'm just thinking the government has plans for everything else.
Give us the money and we'll fix it.
Well, you guys are easy to get along with.
Trouble there. Thank you.
Anybody else gonna come and talk to us?
Gary Martell from the city of Holka. You guys like playing in worms, don't you? Just open a big can of them. 1992, 93, I was chairman of the Root River Flood Control Commission with Mr. Corker and a few people. And Root River has been a very interesting thing. It's created lots of problems. I totally get Jim, Jeff, and those guys' issues, and they're legitimate issues. The other side of the coin is we've got city of Holka with our population, our wastewater treatment plant. And when that water comes up, it costs us a pile of money. And the dike, when it blew at Walker's the one winter, I can't remember which flood. I went through like 6 or 7 of them when I was mayor. But we were literally within an hour of losing our whole wastewater treatment plant. So Holka is very interested in what occurs along the Root River. You know, as you're all aware, it's U.S. Judicial Ditch number 1. It was dug out by some of the same machines. And I got a little history from George Kenhammer on it. And it was basically Swedes and Norwegians that would fight each other in Holka at night when they're done working and having a few beers. Kind of an interesting start on that project. But, you know, the thing is the guys that should be here is Minnesota DNR. They're the whole moving force behind this. I mean, you know, they're making Fish and Wildlife do this and that. I can't quite understand what's going on. You know, usually they acquire this land and they want it to revert back to its natural state. So I'll admit I was caught a little off guard when they came up and they want to put it in the dike and help the farmers. That kind of threw me for a loop because back in 07, when I saw the long range plans after we went through the flood in Holka, and I noticed that the areas were shaded and everything from Highway 16 East said U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Everything from Highway 16 West up to Root River Valley said Minnesota DNR. So there's been some divvying up, and there are long range plans on this Root River Valley. But I just, you know, I'm in a tough spot because I know these guys and they're good people, and I understand where they're coming from. But, you know, I also want to emphasize that anything that's done along that Root River affects Holka. And I've seen Highway 16 go under more than once. It's not going to get any better. We all know that. You know, as the county grows and things change, there's more and more water coming down through that channel. I mean, there's been studies. I got a study they did in 85 where they were talking about the Root River and they wanted to put a rock weir in down there by 26 and funnel the water to one side and try to create some depth in the bottom of the river and get more flow. But it's pretty much flat all the way down to the Mississippi River. I don't know what the heck you're going to do, but the only thing you can do is run around the bottoms. You know, one of the things was they want to put an overflow there by Bush Valley and actually run water down through the old Red River Channel to kind of relieve some of the pressure. Another option was Dagandesh's farm. They wanted to put in like a fuse there. And when she backed up in the Mississippi, she'd go down through Lawrence Lake and go out that way. But what you have is you have basically 3 regulatory agencies fighting each other. You got the Minnesota DNR, Fish and Wildlife, and the Corps of Engineers. And when you start messing around in their chicken coop, they get a little nervous. So yeah, I don't know the Minnesota League of Minnesota Cities. They actually did an article on Holka back in like 2008 about how there's nothing that can really be done around Holka because of the various regulatory agencies doing their thing in there and, you know, there's just, the city of Hoka can't grow. We can't do much anything. Because between the blufflands, the floodplains and whatnot, there's just no place for us to go. So we're kind of trapped. And I don't envy you guys. It's a tough thing, but you know, I have to speak up for Hoka. And when you do this stuff, you got to think about us, because you back that water up, you're affecting a lot of people, major traffic artery. As we all know, in 07, when 16 was down, she was a mess.
Yep.
And you're right. You know, they're not doing anything along the Root River. I mean, up by your farm and stuff, look at all the erosion and stuff, you know, all that stuff's laying in the bottom of that river now. All those banks, and now she's widened out, and back when it was a Lloyd Welke put that riprap and stuff in and tried to cure that one part, and they made them dig it back out because they didn't have the proper permits.
The DNR did a lot better than that. When they put that bicycle bridge in, they filled the whole 20 feet below the bridge. They filled it plump full of riprap all the way across. So it blocks the whole river. So the ice can't get through or nothing down there. We've had more trouble with ice down there than anything.
Well, look at the trouble we had with the old railroad bridge before CP Rail finally raised it. But that got down to the point where a few of the boys in town threatened to set it on fire if they didn't do anything, because we had like 2 or 3 floods that were caused by ice jams on that bridge.
I can take you over there by that bridge, and there's culverts that are 2 feet in the ground right now that are brand new. And we took it over and we showed these, you know, politicians, and they said they can't do anything about it now.
Nobody can.
Yeah.
You go around, I did the same thing. I talked till I was blue in the face.
Yeah.
You know, all by Langens, where underground dewatering was, originally, that was supposed to be a 10-acre pan fishing lake.
Here's what they
Primitive
tell you,
access.
just so the public should know this. They came to me and they told me that they were gonna survey my whole farm. When they came in, I'd kick them off because I never sold them no land. And Mike Lee, he gave me a choice. I'd either have to sit in jail or let them survey. Well, I kicked them off twice more because I read in the county up here, if the people they were sending in were not licensed surveyors. So I kept kicking them off, and then they went and got a licensed surveyor. Then they came in and surveyed it. I couldn't stop them. Then they came back and told me, we're gonna flood your farm completely by a foot. And you can't do nothing about it. But they said, if you ask for compensation, we will give you compensation, but you have to, then the state of Minnesota is the only entity that can buy your property. Now, is that fair?
Underground dewatering, 10-acre primitive access pan fishing lake.
Yeah.
I signed as the mayor of Hoka. Dwayne Frankraun signed as Hoka Township chairman. And then city of Hoka and Hoka Township would take care and maintain that lake. And when they redid the highway, nothing happened. And just before Dwayne died, he said, you're never going to find out, but I kept pursuing it. I went to Rochester. I talked to Augustine. I kept pursuing it. Turns out that they swapped that piece of property to Fish and Wildlife for some stuff up in northwestern Minnesota. But nobody'd step up and say that. They just thought they'd bury it.
Yeah.
And I found it out in 2007 when they had all their maps and stuff down there, and I saw this. So anytime I see anything like this, I get nervous. I'm not one of these, you know, conspiracy theorists or anything like that, but you know, there's some real serious crap going on down in our neck of the woods, folks.
If they would let these farmers fix it the way they want to fix it,
Yes.
I prefer that. Because you know what? I don't care what anybody says. Those guys who run those cats and that, they got the common sense to do it right.
Yeah.
You know,
You know, and I'm sure these guys will fix it. You know, Jim and Jeff and those guys, they'll fix it. They know how to fix it, but there's no way of improving it. You know, you can go down to Louisiana and boy, they're spending millions and billions of dollars down there, but can't seem to fix our little stretch of the river up here.
if they put it 100 feet back away from that riverbank, it would stay there forever. That's just common sense.
You know, see, the problem is you live here. and you don't have that degree, what you gotta do is you gotta move up to the Twin Cities, get a college loan, because you ain't gonna have to pay for the damn thing anyways, and get that degree, okay? So anyway, all I'm asking you guys is when you consider this, I'm actually a little upset because the city of Hoka was never notified. Anything along that river affects the city of Hoka.
Are you saying no, leave it? Is that,
Am I saying, what's that?
are you saying your opinion, it should be left the way it is?
You know,
As far
where it
as the
is,
permit
where it
goes.
is down there, you know, it would be nice if it was open, but the big thing is right across from us. You know, where Walker Farm was, that tends to be the relief valve now. But you know, it did flow into Tom's too. I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, that area is gonna flood no matter what you do. She's gonna get it, because if they fix down there, she's gonna go a little further up. You know, on the other side of the coin is now you're shunting the water back across, now you're gonna get Krybeck over to Crazy K. Bury his property. I mean, you know, there's no good, concise solution to this. You know, that's why you guys make the big money, so that you can handle this kind of stuff.
I mean, the big decision, I'm just saying
I
that
guess,
we could only deal with this permit that's.
I know,
in front of
I
us
realize
today.
that, I
No matter
realize
what.
that.
Yes.
But I
Right or
guess,
wrong.
you know, the thing is, they're gonna be coming back. This is not the end of it. You guys are gonna be facing it again and again and again. You know, they're gonna heal it up down there and she's gonna go someplace else. She's always gonna poke a hole in that dike someplace. It's not really a dike, it's just all the dredging and stuff they dug out of the river and they dug out of US Judicial Ditch #1. That's where they piled it. That's what created that. It's never really been an engineered dike or anything like that.
The DNR's got an awful lot of money. You would think they could throw a little towards us. Want to build a bike trail from the present to Village Corner.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it make more sense to take that money and put this into something nice, big, huge, get it done right?
Now, see, you're using common sense. You can't do that. You can't do that. I think those guys should be treated fair. But, you know, we have to be careful with what's done down there so it doesn't impact our city. So, I mean, what's gonna occur further up? Like, Polybronics. Who the hell owns that now? Is that Fish and Wildlife? I mean,
DNR.
DNR.
That's got a hole in it now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But you know, you plug it up there, you're gonna bring that pressure back. That's gonna expand that one. It has to go someplace.
The only real solution to this whole problem is to take the dams out of the Mississippi.
Yeah,
And nobody's going there.
yeah, but still you get wetland credits and stuff. Well, wait a minute. When they put the lock and dam system in and took all them farms, there was never any credit for that. I don't know, that's,
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, and just to mention, and this was in the permit, we're required to contact the town. And I contacted Terry Rosendahl.
he's the Hoka Township, I'm Hoka City.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize for that.
That's, and if your tires are flat when you leave, I don't want you to blame me. Okay? Probably one damn farm or something.
Well, do we have anybody else that's,
Could I just make
Sure.
a quick comment? He's a friend of mine, too, so.
what's your
I
name?
can't believe you acknowledge that publicly.
What's your name?
The city of Polka.
Sir?
His fault.
Could you state your name, Tom?
Tom Langen. Okay, was probably before he got there. The whole septic system whatever you call that over there,
Treatment plant.
treatment plant. If they hauled this much more fill in, and they knew the river got that high when they built that plant, nobody ever had a problem again. And they knew, I'm sure they knew the water got that much higher than their plant. You just look at the trees where the ice is chewed the bark off, they'll tell you where it was.
Actually, Tom, the new plant is higher than the old one.
Oh, yeah,
It is. Go down there and look. The new plant is higher. We raised it.
but not quite high enough.
Well, it was supposed to be high enough.
Yeah.
But as we're well aware, after 07, all that stuff went out the window.
07 was a 100-year flood.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
more,
a
fire,
500-year
more than
flood.
that. Yeah,
We
thousand,
just lost
thousand.
six of the way it's been for 100 years.
We're asking is just to make it back. And if it goes over that, we got more issues then.
But that's what I'm getting at.
All right, so
I
get
just
that
want to-
back.
so, The only thing that we're talking about here is putting the site back to where it was prior to this breach.
The way we were approached on the permit was in the capacity of like for like.
No higher,
Nope.
same place.
And that was the entire premise of
I
where we
mean,
were.
the idea that we can engineer anything here ourselves, I mean,
Well, I'm wondering about that. Have the dike building improved? Is there, they put plastic in it or?
This, I don't believe this is the case in that. I think it's just gonna be a silty material that will be compacted in. And
Yeah.
I mean, we really haven't even been given like Proctor densities and some of the geotechnical requirements to that
Yeah.
level for the reconstruction. It's more like to put it back.
The material that's gonna be used for, we being, Dave Walter from the Soil and Water Conservation District and I went out and did some soil sampling. It was not like engineered, but we tried to find good places on the site that would have adequate material to rebuild it. A lot of times these get rebuilt with sand and silt, and we tried to find the best material that was on the site, so.
I'm gonna find some of that clay.
Yeah,
A finer grain material that has more cohesion to it that will stick together.
we definitely have some good, some better than other on there, and the two sites that we picked were good, so.
All right, does anybody else wanna
And
weigh in on this?
in addition, I have in your packet, there were 2 written comments that I included. And I did get one email comment from Tim Runnigan that was against it as well.
All right, thank you. Any more discussion in our group here? Hearing none, I guess we're ready for findings. huh?
Okay. Subdivision 1 findings, the planning commission shall not recommend, well, let's see if there's any. There are a few non-applicables here.
I'll make a motion to take 8 and 9.
It's like 13 and 14.
13 and 14. Motion made and seconded to take 8, 9, 13, and 14 out. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hold same sign. Motion carries.
Go ahead with the findings.
Yep.
Okay. The findings, the planning commission shall not recommend a conditional use permit unless they find the following. 1, that the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan. Staff analysis, the proposed activities conform to section 2 and section 3 of the Houston County Comprehensive Land Use for restoration of habitat as well as agriculture and natural resources management.
Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 2, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis. Substantial work has gone into the project, including the needs analysis and evaluation of alternatives.
who did the needs analysis?
Sorry, I I can need to talk about it. The needs analysis in terms of where I'm making reference to is the analysis that US Fish and Wildlife did with the various alternatives.
That was with the 7 alternatives.
Right.
Yep, and it ended up settling on an 8, which was a combination.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Number 3.
Negative, same sign, passes.
Number 3, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Staff analysis. The project will protect water quality by providing additional protection and supporting 106 acres of buffer and wetlands in the floodplain.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 4, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis, the project will not increase water runoff and improved habitat will handle runoff in the floodplain.
Any comments on that?
Well, it won't increase it, but it'll change it from their property to somebody else's property.
It's a balance.
All in favor of staff analysis, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 5, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Staff analysis, soils are analyzed for their geotechnical properties and repairing the levee.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 6, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Staff analysis, no additional pollution hazards are foreseen and the levee will be put back to historic elevations based on LiDAR.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 7, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis, adequate access exists for the proposal.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 8, not applicable. Number 9, not applicable. Number 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Staff analysis, uses will not change and potentially less flooding of neighboring properties will improve use and enjoyment.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for predominant uses in the area. Staff analysis, the project has considered surrounding properties with 2 stakeholder meetings in July 2021 and July 2022 to develop alternatives and an ultimate decision.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 12, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. Staff analysis, activities and repairs will be performed during daylight hours in manner similar to local farming.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Number 13, not applicable. Number 14, not applicable. Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis, the refuge special use permit will establish site-specific conditions which public health, safety, morals, and general welfare for all parties involved with the site.
Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I would make a motion to accept the findings.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Accept the findings that presented.
Sorry.
Running just ask you to read that email.
Tim's email.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
So you read it so that we can.
Okay, yeah, and one of the comments from Tim Runigan, if you wanted this entered directly, since.
Let's finish with the,
Yes,
all in favor.
Roll
Oh,
call.
I'll do the roll, right. For the findings, approval, Greg
Yes.
Myrie,
Yes.
Yep.
Rick Shield,
Reluctantly, yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Ed Hamel, not here, Jim Weezer,
Yes.
Larry Hafner,
yes,
Josh Grant.
Yes.
And just, this is sort of an administrative thing, but Tim Runigan wanted his entered in and he called it in just today, so I didn't have the ability to present it to you. But you were, Tim Runigan wrote, I'm against it as he feels it benefits the landowners on the levee side of the river and hurts the landowners on the opposite side of the river.
oh, no. So we'll need the recommendation, huh?
Okay, the conditions, recommended conditions are, I'll put it this way. Recommend the Houston County Board approve the conditional use application to repair a levee in a floodplain district with the following conditions. Number one, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Number two, the county may enter onto the premises at reasonable times and in a reasonable manner to ensure the permit holder is in compliance with the conditions and all other applicable statutes, rules, and ordinances. Number three, a copy of the refuge special use permit shall be provided to the Houston County Zoning Department upon issuance.
Are there any additions or corrections to the recommended?
Could we put a recommendation in there that the DNR pays for it? Well, I'm sure they're gonna be down there telling you how to do it.
Well, the only thing they know how to manage is the checkbook.
Boy, I care about that too.
Okay.
I'll recommend approval of the permit with the three conditions.
I'll second it.
Yeah, do the
Do a roll call.
roll call.
Okay. Roll call to approve the permit with the recommended conditions. Greg Myrie,
Yes.
Rich Shield,
Yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Jim Weezer,
Yes.
Larry Haffner,
Yes,
Josh Grant.
Yes.
That's it.
motion has been made and passed.
This will
Thank you,
go,
guys.
this will go to the county board on September sixth.
I'll make a motion to
For
approve
their
the last. the one of these minutes.
And they have to go and make changes to it as well.
So Greg and Rich. Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Just for the record, I want to say this for Bill. This seems to me a bad way to be managing in this river. Like one little piece here, one piece there, but you don't have any other. All you could do is vote on one particular thing. You can't fix anything else that might affect that. So your hands are tied because it's just not a very good way to do it.
What we're doing is we're doing this in the context of zoning, and then we're doing it in the context of like by like. So in other words, it was just, you're gonna put it back to just what it was. And it isn't in the context of, well, can we do these other measures? Because when you start to involve the other measures, then you get into the modeling, then you get into all these other steps that go along with it. And it's further complicated by the fact that this is a water body that has far more regulation on it than most other parts of the river.
Yeah.
And so in other locations, it wouldn't be quite to the same level. And so that kind of compounds the situation as well. But what they were asking us, we can only act on what they were asking.
And go back to the way it was.
And it was in that context that's what they were bringing up.
But we need farmers like these guys that will do this all the way up that river, all the way up to Rochester. And then, but these guys are taking the bulk of all that water and they're dealing with it.
Yes.
And that's not right.
It's a lot of area.
There should be more than go.
Did I ask a question? So
Sure, the meeting's over.
next time, this is a judicial ditch. And anywhere else in Minnesota, ditch committee. They don't have to involve the Fish and Wildlife or anything. It's a judicial ditch and it's supposed to be maintained. It shouldn't have been dragged out for 2.5 years. Really. Does anybody know what a judicial ditch, can anybody investigate it and find out?
We could ask
what's
that.
happening?
Actually, you know what? I mean, that's a good question for the land use plan. We're working on the land use plan right now in terms of, I'll throw that out there.
Okay.
I don't know what the answer is gonna be, but I'll bring it up.
Hopefully it's a good one.
Well, and I'll try to write it fair, you know, I won't, but, you know, yeah, absolutely. I see what you're getting at is that what is the overriding, you know, direction of where you go with it and then who has to say.
It's the first ditch. US judicial ditch number 1.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask that.
I'll second, Rick's motion.
Yeah, I think,
Oh, I didn't hear that.
yes.